We are pleased really to welcome you at the onset of the new series of webinars that are organized by both the IAS and the Pakistani Academy of Sciences. Our speaker today is Dr. Bahadar Marwat, who is a prominent wheat scientist holding 2 PhD from University of Peshawar and University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He was involved in teaching and administration, working as Vice-Chancellor of the University of Agriculture, Peshawar, Vice-Chancellor of Shahid Benazir Bhutto University, and still served as President of Wheat Science Society, Pakistan. And he is Chief Editor of Pakistani Journal of Wheat Science Research. Dr. Marwat remained nominee of President of Pakistan on board of the trustee of Pakistani Science Foundation, member of Pakistan Council of Science and Technology, member Executive Committee of National Commission of Science and Technology, and remained member of National Core Group on Life Science, member PhD Review Committee for KP, and Balochistan as nominee of HEC and worked as member of WWF Scientific Committee. He was decorated with different awards and recognitions, like Sitara Imtiaz in 2012, President of Pakistan Medal for Science and Technology, Quaid Azam Medal, Best Teacher Award, Outstanding Wheat Scientist Award. Is President of Pakistani Botanical Society, President Wheat Science Society, Chief Editor of Peshawar or BJWSR, Editor Pak Jor of Botany, PhD Examiner for Karachi and Punjab University, Gomal University, University of Malaya, Malaysia, University of Maamun, Singapore, Bangladesh, and Oregon State University at Corvallis, USA. He has international awards and recognition, Life Achievement Award from Asia Pacific, President Asia Pacific Wheat Science Society, Principal Investigator of Linkage Project with University of Queensland, organizer of Asia Pacific Wheat Science Conference in Lahore, member of Himalayan University Consortium since 2010, life member country representative of International Wheat Science Society. He has attended 89 conferences or symposia, international and national. He had a chance to work on a statutory body of different university, KUST, USNT, BANU, member syndicate and selection board of the University of Agriculture, pioneer member of Chancellor Committee and Selection Committee of Malakand University, syndicate of Peshawar University, member Senate Shahid Benazir Bhutto University, member Senate and syndicate of Hazara University, member board governor of City University, member Senate Abyssinian University, member board of governor Cordoba University, a fellow to mention, a few to mention. He has more than 200 citable articles. Dr. Khan, please, the floor is yours.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صدق الله مولانا العظيم. My respectable colleagues,
Dr. Khan, your screen is not visible on our screen.
My picture is not visible?
Your picture is okay, but your lecture outline is not.
Okay, let me start again.
Pranur Bhatt.
Is it visible?
Your picture is okay.
Share screen.
Share screen if you want. You want to share your screen?
Well, let me try again. I shared it, but
Share again.
Share again.
yeah, I'll share again. Let's just give me a minute. It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
thank you. It's really a pleasure to be with my distinguished friends and colleagues from different parts of the country, different parts of the world. I must thank the Islamic World Academy of Sciences and Pakistan Academy of Sciences for giving me the opportunity to be with you this morning, rather this afternoon. And I welcome all the participants to this webinar who are here from different parts of the world. And I wish you all to be safe and sound. My talk is climate change and plant biodiversity. And I'll focus mainly on plant biodiversity. And as you know, climate science or subject is related to basic sciences, agriculture, health, and so on. So I'll be focusing on some of the issues, but those which are mainly related to agriculture. Before we start the presentation, let me give you an idea of that I'll be mostly focusing on Pakistani issues. When we say Pakistan, Pakistan has we were just talking of the temperature. The temperature is goes well below zero and goes up to 50%, 50 degrees Celsius in the summer. Rain ranges from less than 150 millimeter to 1,000 millimeter annually. And with the globalization, when we look at it, during the last decade, the average temperature was reached at the rate of 0.6 degrees Celsius. But we are expecting that in the next decade, that will be rising from 2 to 4 degrees centigrade. That is the estimated limit that I must mention. The focus of my talk will be, as I said it before, it will be changing climate, the biodiversity, and food security. The detail, let me refer to the UN findings that there are 5 main areas: health, energy crisis, and climate change, food security and security, what would you call it, and loss of biodiversity. These are the challenges for sustainable development of the world. So these are the things that will focus, but the last 3 I'll focus on, but indirectly the health and energy crisis will be simultaneously discussed along with. So when we look at globally, it's really interesting that when you look at the world population and estimate In today's lecture, I'll be focusing on the simulations study, which will be ending till in 2050. The world population by that time would be around 9 billion with the present growth rate. The consumption will definitely increase and the pattern of consumption will increase. If we take the major wheat staple food, will be deficient if it goes this way, from 6 to 23% by 2050. The agriculture practices that we are employing today are not really environment friendly. The challenges are posed by climate change. We have increased competition for land, water, energy, and other inputs. This whole scenario, if you look at it, if you look at the greenhouse gases, and that farms are emitting 6 billion tons, and that is 19% of the total emission. And countries with largest emission is China, Brazil, US, etc. And the major emission in farm of is methane, and nitrous oxide. There are different definitions, but the way I look at it, that when at all the times people have access to sufficient food, which is safe and nutritious, this is what we call the food security. The climate change, the climate change is any significant change, which is long-term change in the expected patterns of average weather of the region or the whole world over a significant period of time. So that is the climate. What is biodiversity? Let us go a little bit into the background of the biodiversity. The biodiversity was officially introduced to the whole world through a convention on biodiversity in 1992 in June, where the conference was held in Brazil, and that is called CBD. And 150 countries participated in it and were signatories, and Pakistan was one of them. So when we look at the biodiversity, it's not the only the fauna and flora, but it also consists of the ecosystems or community diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. When we look at the importance of that diversity, we have it has a bigger role in food security, and food security in terms of cereals, pulses, vegetables, grains, fruits, shelter, spices, and medicine. In shelter, I mean specifically in the Hindu Kush and Himalayan regions, where mostly the people are dependent upon shelter from wood, and the wood is obtained from plants, of course. And same is the case in the deserts. In the deserts, we have a plant Ticomella by the name Ticomella undulata, and locally it is compatible. They call it in the deserts. We call it is compatible wood with the yar or devdar, which is famous wood that we look at spices and medicines. The current status of just giving you back a little bit of background. The current statistic approximately these are the about 300,000 plants are edible plants. Animals provide 30% of the human requirements as far as food, and more than 20,000 plants are used in medicines by the indigenous people, and as well also in the industry as well. When we think of the Pakistan, we are a very blessed country in that respect, and if you look at the variety of the ecosystems and variety of the ecology that we have on the ground, it's extremely different from other parts of the world that we look at. When I say we really differ from many of the countries, just look at the this small diagram. We have a K2, which is more than 8,000 meters high, and we have a Arabian Sea in Karachi, which is just a meter or two above sea level. So you can see the variation in the altitude, and this plays a bigger role in having different kind of plants and animal species when we look at it. Out of the 14 high peaks, the 5 are in Pakistan, and this also, if you can look at the ranges, we have the highest is the in Pakistan. I'm tracking is the K2, which is 8,611 meters, and the lowest one is Keshan Bantu, which is 8,035 meters. So this gives you another idea that how we have the different, the elements of the biodiversity, which determines the biodiversity in different parts of the. Just to give you an idea of the phytogeographic regions of Pakistan, we are fortunate that on the eastern side, if you look at it, we have the Iranian region, and on the western side also, we have the western Iranian-Turanian region. Then we have the Sino-Japanese element, if you look at it, Sino-Japanese regions, which is a different type of climate that we have. The major country, which is which we call it Sahara-Sindhian region, which covers most of the country, but that only refers to the few percentage of exact, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it is less than 40% of the total biodiversity when compared to this big region of Sino-Japanese and Irano-Turanian region. We have a very little of Indian elements, we call it. It's a desert element, and it is available in some parts of the country as well. And because of that diversity and landscape, we are fortunate that we are having different kind of plants and animals. If we look at the mammals, different kind of mammals that we have, the birds that we have, the reptiles, the amphibians, the fish, the freshwater, the marine fish, the insect, and the flowering plants. This number exactly, I cannot say that it is 6,000. In 1972, there was a catalog published by Stewart, and that consisted 6,600 plants. But now we completed Flora of Pakistan last year. We had the celebration, and one of the pioneer fellow of Pakistan Academy of Sciences, SILE, he participated in it. But soon after, he died because he was at the age of 90 plus, and he died. I don't know, it was probably heart attack, but he was there to celebrate those many years. We started Flora of Pakistan in 1970, basically, and it ended in 2020. So it was spread over those 50 years, half a century. So we are going to start a new flora with new findings, of course. Challenges to biodiversity. What are the challenges that we face? This is the human population, our growth, population and pollution and diseases, the habitat loss and degradation, and introduction of invasive alien species, overexploitation of natural resources, climate change globally, energy crisis, and international trade. The energy crisis, we mostly depend on woods in those areas where the gas and electric supply is not available. So the woods are those areas, and those areas are dependent on wood for fire. And international trade, where the food items and cereals and many other things are transferred from one country or one region to another region. The pests or other associated weeds goes with. So that is another challenge to the biodiversity. Just to give you a background of how these work over the years, this is 100 years data. And if you look at it, how it happens with the freshwater species, marine species, and terrestrial species. If you look at the graph, it's almost linear decrease in the number of species that we have. The looking at Pakistan, it ranks 135th in terms of global greenhouse emissions, and contributes only 1% to the total global greenhouse gases emissions, but still very vulnerable. Energy sector contributes out of this 1%. The energy sector contributes 50, agriculture 39, industry 6, and others 5%. As per report of the climate risk index, which was published in 2020, Pakistan is the 5th most affected country with economic losses of 3.8 billions. And we were just listening your discussion with Tasawwur Hayat, and there are people who are interested to give lectures, and probably one person was interested to look at the economics of the climate change, and probably that is where it comes. That only Pakistan is losing 3.8 billion over the years. So you can see how much total losses will be occurred to the poor countries of the Islamic world. Now, when we are specifically looking at Pakistan, we are expecting with the simulation data that by 2050, we'll have the temperature rise of 2.5 to 2.9, and that will be mainly in the north, because in the north we have the glaciers, we have the mountains, we have the forests. So when those areas get warmer, then the same is translated to the plains as well. So that is something very crucial, and we have to take care of it as far as humanly possible. Higher levels of precipitations are modeled for 2050. The way we look at the rains, it is increasing with the passage of time. And monsoonal rainfall, which used to be in the fall seasons of the country, that is being very irregular, and it has changed the paths. I had the opportunity to work in the Hindu Kush and Himalayan regions for 4 years as Vice-Chancellor of Botany University, and that area is out of monsoon range. But in those 4 years, we had the monsoon rains. So I had written a small article on it, but it's not a part of this lecture. So maybe sometime, some other time we'll discuss that. But that is the changes occurring within the country as far as the biggest climatic factor of monsoon rains are concerned. The climate change has already impacted the plant diversity, which is the significant factor. Loss of Arctic Sea the sea ice, which is already in danger, and that is affecting the entire biome, the whole world. The pressure of ocean acidification because of carbon dioxide is already there. Ecosystems are changing with the climate change, and higher temperature, extreme weather events, and changing patterns of rainfall and drought. These are expected and will definitely impact our biodiversity. Now, since we are talking a lot about the biodiversity, and the biodiversity to a common man mainly translates into a agrobiodiversity. So it's just a general definition of a agrobiodiversity, which was Valentina in 2010. Just to have a components of the agro biodiversity, we have the mixed ecosystems. We have the crop species and varieties, livestock and fish, plant and animal germplasm, cell organism in cultivated areas, biocontrol agents of crops and livestock, pets, wild species as land races are with breeding culture and local knowledge of diversity. So this is what a biodiversity means to a layperson. Now you can look at the this graph. 70% of the world's food generated from only 12 plants and 5 animal species. I cannot name all of them. I don't remember maybe, but wheat, maize, and rice are in this part of the world. Cassava and potato and some other species are in other parts of the world. But these all contribute to the 70% of the food generated. And same is the case of the 5 animals that we look at it. So this is again agrobiodiversity has an impact on the plants and animals, and not only those which are in the wild, but those which are otherwise domesticated or grown. So only these 3 crops, as I mentioned, rice, maize, and wheat, contribute 60% of the total calories and proteins obtained by the humans from plants. And you can see the grain production, millions of tons from 1950 to 2000. So in continuous increase, almost a linear increase, I must say. Global consequences of food security, rather insecurity. Every 5 seconds, a child below 10 years of age dies from hunger or malnutrition. I must put it in a different way. Every day, 25,000 people die of hunger directly or indirectly, but hunger is there because they don't get enough or adequate food. And if you look at the world population, almost 1 billion people are undernourished and are not getting proper food, which is a shame for the total world. Biodiversity and food security. And let me just narrate some of the major contributors. The introduction of invasive exotic species due to changing climate. These invasive can be local or exotic. We'll get into it after a while. Loss of gene pool because we are becoming dependent on few and eliminating the others. We neglected and underutilized species are blown out of the use. Corporate farmings, which is a danger, and is coming to the countries like ours. And we don't recommend it, but people look at the immediate benefits which comes to the pocket. So we don't have much control unless we have legal framework for it. high input based agriculture, again a problem. I say that we should not go for the very high input based agriculture, because this is ultimately affecting the sustainability. And monocultures, we are going to monocultures because the demand will increase for, let us say, for sugarcane, and people will go for the sugarcane. And then this ultimately the big powers will play with this phenomenon, and ultimately that blanks of the sugar may be filled through other sources, and that country won't be able to sell its own products worth a few pennies. So these are the kind of things that you should be aware of. And the biofuels, that I said that people are going towards biofuels, and this was a slogan a few years back, which is not that much nowadays, but people were going for biofuels and were cultivating those plants. But again, I must say that we have the polyculture of different kind of sustainable agriculture rather than only one or two species. Some invasive plants which are invasive. As far as invasive plants are concerned, they rank first or second in threatening the biodiversity. They replace and compete with the native flora, rapidly invade cultivated lands. I'll give you the example of prosopis, which is called mesquite. And new pests and weeds come with some of the plants that we'll be discussing, Prosonatia, and retard seed germination and growth of native plants by releasing allelopathic agents. Some of the plants that I had a study in Pakistan, and these are some of the plants that I'm going to share with this form. One of the major plant, I have taken it from Islamabad. This is called paper mulberry. During the era of Ayub Khan, and later on the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, our honorable president used to be in the prime minister. The Prosonatia pepirifera was brought for the greening of the capital, Islamabad. Now, the problem is that if you have it has a male plant and a female plant separate. So if you have they thought that it will not, spread because we will grow only the female one. But all of a sudden, the male plant came in somehow. And now the total Islamabad and some part of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Punjab as well have got this plant. And this plant, Tasawwur Hayat, or Secretary General, can bear me out and can comment on it if you want to at the end of the lecture. This is one of the mostly studied plant in terms of allergies caused at the federal capital, Islamabad. And that plant was introduced by the forest department, and we are left with no choice but physically pulling it. And it's very difficult to remove it, but we have succeeded to some extent, but it's still there. Mesquite or Prosopis juliflora, which is again another invasive, which was introduced by forest department for the marginal lands. Again, it is spreading. And at one point in time, it was considered a security plant. And during the militants era, the army used to grow it in some of the areas to protect themselves from abrupt attack from the militants. And now that Prosopis is now spreading all over the country, and we do not have any way to control it rather than, because it is a perennial plant and we cannot control it with ordinary herbicides. Or if you are using the non-selective herbicide, then we are going to pollute the environment and the soil as well. So it's a very difficult weed again to get hold of. Rubina Sudacacia is not bad. It is although introduced, but it is substituting our pinus, the beautiful tree, the pine tree, in the temperate. I must put it this way. We have Ailanthus again introduced by the Forest Department. We have many 140 or 44 species of eucalyptus. One of it is Camaldulensis, imported from Australia. We have Icarnia, which is a water plant. It is ornamental, which was also introduced. We call it Gullibacauli. We have Salvinia Molesta. It was introduced by mistake. I don't know how it came in, but it came from South America, and it is available everywhere. I forgot to put this Tegetus with the the sign. It's Tegetus is another. It's the marigold, a small form of marigold, and it is found in relatively cooler regions of the country. Lantana camera, which is available everywhere throughout the world. Then again, Parthenium staurophorus. Let me comment on it. The Parthenium did not exist in Pakistan. When we look at the catalog of the 1972, as I mentioned earlier, that the first catalog of the flora of Pakistan was written by Stewart in 1972. And in that catalog, we don't have the mention of Parthenium staurophorus. But now you cannot find a single place, right from, I've been to Chatral, I've been to Gilgit, I've been to different parts of Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Sindh. And this plant, because I had a project on this particular plant through Higher Education Commission with Queensland University, Australia. But we're still worried how it came and how it spread throughout the country and through different parts of the country. Cannabis sativa, the bhanga, the marijuana, which many people call it, now it has been officially accepted to be cultivated in different parts of the world. We are also suggesting for this cultivation because the fiber plant also, and also medicinalist at the same time. Pistia statutes, again, I must say that in 1972 catalog, it was only reported from northern Waziristan, which is at height, and now it is the only place which was reported from was North Waziristan, Razmat. That is the cadet college also there. Now it is spread in Peshawar Valley, Dei Khan, as far as I know, and maybe in some part of Punjab, but I cannot say for sure. Ipomia is another one, Alternanthera is another one, Trianthema is another one. Amex spinosa, again, I must say, was not available in Pakistan, which was in 1972 catalog, it is missing. And it was for the first time reported in 1970s by Chaudhry Nazir from Islamabad, who was working in some of the areas close to Islamabad, and he found it, and it was we were young scientists at the time, and we were, it was fascinating to find a new plant. Galium eparine, again Xanthium stomarium, a very, very tough weed, and I like it because my PhD study was on one of those weeds which consisted of Xanthium stomarium as well. Lonium and Phragmites australis. Now look at this is another plant which is called Silybum marianum. Again, was not available in the history of the flora of Pakistan till 1972. And one of my PhD students also worked on this particular plant. One of the good things about this weed is that silymarin for hepatic diseases is extracted from this particular plant. And now the local farmers and the young children are after it, and when it is mature, they collect the seeds and sell it to Pakistan Council of Scientific and we call it PCSIR labs in Peshawar. And no, it is not the tough weed, but the reason I'm referring to is that it was never found in the history of Pakistan till 1972, and now it is one of the major weeds. Again, another weed, Amyvis naga, was introduced by one of the professors of botany, and I think they extract vicinin from it, and it's used in heart diseases. And he was a medicinal plant specialist. And when I was studying in 1970s, early 1970s, the person was retired by that time, and he died then later on. And he used to come and work on this particular species, but we never knew that this plant will escape to the cultivated trees. And you can see it's a sugar cane field, and probably you can see few sugar plants compared to this particular weed that we have introduced. This is the just for the information and for the interest of the audience. This is a male plant of Grosonithia, and you can see the catkins and the pollens spread from it, and people all around Islamabad that I mentioned are affected from it. This is as I already mentioned, Parthenian Stauroferus, and my favorite, as I said it, I worked on it, and this is how it is spreading in the wastelands. Now, coming a little bit back to the explanations, since 1970s, 75% of plants genetic diversity has been lost, as the farmers have worldwide left their multiple local varieties and land races for genetically uniform high-yielding varieties. Since, like, let us say example of mustard or brassica. If you look at it, the traditional brassica that we have is not, the height is not same, so we usually make selections as a breeder to select those plants or those varieties which are uniform in terms of height. So whenever somebody brings in a new variety which is, having a height of similar plants are similar in height, and they select it. And when they select it, we are losing. This was just one example, and of the brassica that I mentioned. The new varieties which we are introducing, with more variety and more chemicals and fertilizers and pesticide dependent, and of course, as a result, when we put more water and more nutrients, then of course the increasing salinity and waterlogging is one of the areas that we will encounter in the future. This is the threats posed by the human beings, and again, when we look at it, it's the erosion pollution which affect the soil mismanagement. We have the salinization, as we already mentioned, the dry land degradation from overgrazings, where we don't have control on the sheep and goats, and dry land degradation from overgrazing, and over extraction of groundwater, where tube wells, we don't have any control on the groundwater extraction, and people are using their own bores and getting water from the ground, and they are not charging water again. So there is legislation required in the country and elsewhere where the people are dependent on tube well irrigation. And of course, this way the plants become more susceptible to diseases and pests. Monoculture and polyculture. As let me just give you one example. When we were kids, we would say that in Pashto we say, which I will translate it into English, if you don't have wheat, we can have barley, we can have sorghum, we can have millet. So that was the beauty of the polyculture. But now with the high yielding varieties of wheat and maize, and we have, when I was kid, we used to take, the bread in the villages, because I'm from a village in the southern part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And we used to have, we were big farmers ourselves. But you look at those golden days in the drought and in the conditions where famine was there, where people would not get wheat. Then even those who had enough of wheat, they will distribute it and will eat sorghum and millet along with, will mix it with the wheat, so that the society at large is homogeneous in terms of facing the the difficulty of obtaining foods. So these were the beauties of the polyculture. Now, as I mentioned, in the corporate farming, they are trying to introduce one crop on very extended areas, and that will cause a problem, because all of a sudden those countries which are introducing those crops will ultimately withdraw it, and with the withdrawal, the country will become without food items left for that area, because they will be not used to the traditional varieties that we are using it, and they will be lost it. Erosion of genetic resources will, with the time, will be losing the genetic resources. Modern varieties will replace the traditional ones. Minor and underutilized crops are neglected. We are fortunate that in Pakistan we have the gene bank in Islamabad, in the National Agriculture Research Council, but it is not. It is a very expensive job, and many of the countries may not be having it. So at some point in time, we'll have a problem with the plants that we grow today, and we won't be able to, have it for the next generation. As I mentioned already, this is the sorghum and pearl millet, finger millet, and pearl millet. These were the species that I was referring it. That we would mix the flour of this species with the wheat, and in the at the time when the wheat would not be available, especially these days of the year, in the plain areas, the people will have these as a supplementary crop and grains to feed their own people. The pollinators are disappearing. The pollinators that we have for the honey, for making honey, we need pollinators, and the pollinators are different insects, and those are becoming extinct. We cannot get the good wild honey in the field. We can, but not to that extent that we used to have. We have very little, only 14% in protected, which are protected officially, and that is only official figure. I do not usually agree with it, but it is there. All ecosystems are in danger, and we have to inform our people and government what is happening and how to make use of it. Negative attitude of the traditional users of medicines, or medicinal hakims, which we call it, and because when they find a plant which is good for, let us say, for cold, they will get it from that place along with the roots and seeds, and will put it in his bag, and will use it for the medicine that we use in the So these are the kind of things that we happen and which happen in my country and elsewhere, and we are not really concerned about it much. Now we can conserve this through living collections. Living collections means to have the plants and establish them in a botanical garden. In Jump Azam, as I mentioned, that we have in Islamabad, we have the gene bank, and where we can preserve seeds, embryos, and tissue cultures, and different at very negative temperatures, and but that is not possible everywhere, and this is very limited. But thanks God, we have it at least in my country. We can save it through botanical gardens and Jampla's nurseries, but again, it's not an easy job for for people to make it understand and use it. This is officially usually at the government level. We can do it. What we can do, what we can recommend, promotion of polyculture. Again, we must say that okay, let us get some of the good varieties and good crops, but along with that, we must not forget that we should have the traditional varieties for sustainability of the agriculture that we have. Promotion of awareness and of the biodiversity. This is again on social media and webinars like that we have today. And changes in the attitudes of the scientists. The scientist must think that before introducing a variety, he must think that, okay, I'm going to introduce this variety, but what people are going to do with the indigenous material. So this is the the responsibility of scientists and students and teachers of the research, where they can get hold of these things and tell the government and legislators. Government policies also to be redesignated and to conserve the biodiversity. If you, I'm sure some of the people from Islamabad, Professor Anambat is there. We used to collect colchicine from Islamabad, and that was near the Faisal Masjid. And now you go and you cannot find it. You'll probably go up Margala Hills and will find a plant or two. But when you are subjected to this much to this much of the the pollution and the so
Dr. Khan, are you okay? You finished? You are muted, Dr. Khan.
is it okay now?
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay.
Now you are okay. Now you finished?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Thank you very much for very comprehensive and interesting talk.
Can I go through just a few slides? Just
Yeah, go ahead.
okay. As I said it, there are few things that we can go about it. That is the.
Can you share the slides, Dr. Khan? Can you share the slides?
Okay, it's not coming.
No.
Okay, I think if you can listen me, I'll go through it as such, because I'll then go again and
Okay,
probably could take
okay.
another. Yeah. We have to conserve the flora and fauna, and particularly the pollinators, as we mentioned. We have to look at the pastures and rangelands and wetlands and watersheds. We have to restricting the wasteful consumptions and avoiding the greed of the different segments of the society. Promoting, I'll go to the conclusions. Our social issues are too serious, and we have to correct this thing. Climate change has already started. Are you listening?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Climate change has already started, and we cannot avoid it. So we have to use our resources accordingly. Our ecosystem governance is very weak. We have to go about it and look at the possible things that we can do about it. And the result of the climate changes is Pakistan, as I said, will be warmer. According to CISRO report of 2002, will be warmer by 2020 by 1 degree. This will require more wheat. We'll need more wheat varieties which are tolerant to drought as well as flood. On the whole, wheat yield will go up, even though its geographical distribution will change. Need water storage scheme for the next 2 to 30 years bonus period. I would not talk about this subject because it's politically difficult to make the people understand, but we need certain dams in my country where we can store the water and can access to the water in different parts of the country. As I said, since the temperature will increase, what we are going to do, we must have the wheat varieties, which is the major crop of the plains. The wheat variety should be flood tolerant, because we will have more floods, and should be at the same time high temperature and drought tolerant, because another part of the country will have the drought and the floods. And with these few deliberations, I thank you all, and thank you very much. And I'm sorry I had some problem with the visibility, but I hope I conveyed and communicated what I wanted to communicate. But some of the things that we have seen in the past decade or so, like the 2005 earthquake was unprecedented. The heat wave in 2004 was unprecedented. The flood, the high flood was unprecedented. And again, the tsunami and in Indonesia and typhoons in the United States are unprecedented. So the total globe is under the climate changes problem. So as a one global village, we should face the realities together. All alone, one country and one individual cannot do it. So with this message, I hand over the mic to you. And if you have any questions or comments, you people are welcome. And thank you very much. And thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Khan, for this enlightening talk. Now we can entertain some of the questions from the audience. So if you have any question, you may, Dr. Roma, please. Dr. Roma.
Thank you, Doctor, for such a rich lecture in biodiversity, plant biodiversity and climate change. I would like to ask about the promotion of polyculture, which is, I think it's a very important issue, and we have to start with that. But for sure, this will require shifting of the farmers' thinking, as well as it will cost for example, mechanization and probably shifting of the thinking of governments. So how do you think that we can start with that to promote not only just promotion of polyculture between scientists, because the thing is that countries and the governments, they have to do something to enhance and to promote such a polyculture. Thank you.
Ma'am, as if you can recall, I just mentioned that social awareness at all levels is very important part of this whole game that we are looking at it. The climate change is, I said, it is not a phenomenon which can be controlled by one country or one individual or one continent. It is a problem of the whole world. And let me share with you very candidly that today in Afghanistan we have the famine. We don't have the enough food to food is there, but somehow socially we are unable to approach and reach them to give them the enough food. Same is the case for different other countries in Yemen and different parts of the world where we cannot reach. So the social issues, we have to consider the whole world as our own world, whether that is north or whether that is south or that is east or that is west. And we should go, Luna, for the, for the polyculture, whatever the case may be, but we have to conserve the resources in a gene bank, whether you call it, or whether you call it a botanical garden, or whether you call it a, seed saving or seed preserving industry. But we have to go about these things simultaneously. And of course, as I said, it awareness is the first thing that we should be going about it. And I hope I tried to answer your question. I don't know whether I answered it or not, but that is what I think.
Dr. Noor Bat, Dr. Noor.
Unmute,
Thank you very much for very.
Dr. Noor, you are muted.
Thank you very much. Yes. Is it okay now?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting talk on the very important aspect of climate change, which is affecting the food security and biodiversity of the world over. I have two questions and queries. One aspect important, as was told, that there would be population of 9 billion, population explosion. Is there any effort on the world level to control the populations of the countries where the rate is higher? And the second is, what is the program of using emerging technologies to overcome and mitigate the climate change and enhance the food security? For example, using nanotechnology, they have used these nanomaterials, particles, for for detecting through sensors the pathogens which affect the food in a very heavy way. And there is a host of these applications of new technologies which can mitigate the effect of the climate change and strengthen the aspects of biodiversity related to food security and the plant utilizations. Can we comment on this?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, sure. Sir, as far as population is concerned, as I said it earlier, that since climate issue and the production issue is a global one, not a, involved with one country or one segment of a society. So unless and until we consider the whole world as our own world, we cannot do much about it, because if you are asking for population control in a country which is, in famine already, and that they're looking for, grains and food items, and you ask them to decrease the population, they won't listen to you. So unless and until you consider them as equal on all levels, that you cannot reach them to tell you clearly. As long as, in Pashto again, we say that if you ask me to go to hell with the request, I will probably go to the hell with request. but I won't go to Jannah if you force me to go to Jannah. So it's a question of, asking the people, how we ask them. If you ask them with a sense of respect for them, we'll probably make it possible to get that level of population which we can feed easily. I think even today, the food is not less than the total population. And probably you know about it, that many of the countries even destroy the wheat and put it in the oceans, just to destroy it. They don't give it to somebody. So it's not a question of food. It is a question of justice, the distribution. So I must put it this way, that unless and until we are united to combat this issue, we cannot only contribute to the decrease in population alone. That will be done simultaneously with other social issues which the people are facing in different parts of the world. In emerging technologies, sir, as you mentioned, this is your subject, nanotechnology specifically, but there are so many other things working in the like UAE is using cloud charging for rains and different kind of activities. But again, as I said it, only selected countries with having some authority or the funds can do it, but others cannot do. Like even you might have seen the Chinese news that they have prepared a sun to give sunlight to the different parts of the country, and they control it through remote. So technologies are there, but again, those technologies would need justice and justifiable use in different parts of the world, not only restricted to one part, and that those may be made available to the poor and marginal countries of the world. So these are the two things that I think you asked, and I hope I tried to.
Any more comments or questions?
Yes, please. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the presentation. I have two questions. Through COVID-19, we have a positive effect on the flora where the gases emission was in the lowest level. There's any quantifying report talk about this part?
Can you say it again, Nawal? I could not hear it properly.
Through COVID-19, we have a positive effect in the flora because we have the gas emission was in the lowest level. So do you think there's any report talk about this period, how much, and give a quantifying report talk about how much effect this interval in the flora and fauna?
Well, it's
everything lockdown and the gases emission in the lowest level. Does any report talk about this?
I think the only report that I have seen it is the Sitara report of 2012. I don't know any of the other report, but these kind of things are relative, and this could be done in different phytosociological regions in the different parts of the world, and then a combined report must be as Sitara report. I think it took again 20 years to get it published. So these are the kind of things that we need simultaneously to work together. And I think this Islamic World Academy of Sciences is for this particular purpose, that at least some part of the world can get together and think together and use resources together and promote their own societies, at least, if not the whole world. So this is, I don't have a particular specific clear-cut answers for it, but this is what I feel now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if there is no more questions, I have a comment and a question. Dr. Khan.
Okay, please.
You're talking about biodiversity, which is really very important aspect that affect many things, as you mentioned in your lecture.
Yes,
And the most important thing that is being affected is the biocapacity of the country,
yes,
which is reflected in the ecological footprint of the country. And
Yes.
this has something to do with the carbon credit, because if we reduce the emission
yes,
through taking care of biodiversity, for instance,
yes,
we can reduce carbon emission. And we now, as you know, on COP26, they establish or they operate Article 6 of Paris Pact
right,
for carbon trade. That is, country can really trade the reduction of carbon in development. They can
Right.
funnel money into the country through reduction. Now, you talk a lot of many things that can reduce carbon emission and can enhance biodiversity, like policies, conservation, restoration and conservation, بما فيهم protected areas, and sustainable agriculture policies, social norm, and gene banks. In the gene bank area, do you have in Pakistan collected the land races of whatever edible plants in the gene banks? Do you have gene banks? And if you
Yeah.
have, do you collected the land races of,
Yes.
of the cultivated plants? Another
Yes.
thing, did
Yeah.
you take care of the indigenous knowledge, the
Yeah.
local knowledge in the communities? Because this is really very important
yes.
in protecting the biodiversity. I really welcome your comment on this.
Thank you very much. It's, of course, when we are talking of the biodiversity, the indigenous knowledge of a particular society is of prime importance. And unless and until we do have the indigenous knowledge of a particular society or a particular area, we cannot contribute much to the biodiversity, because this indigenous knowledge can work and can tell the people what to do with, like you very rightly mentioned that indigenous knowledge, like if a person knows about a particular plant, that it is good for certain particular disease as a and that can be used, and all of a sudden he sees a person who is extracting from the roots the whole plant, so he will stop that particular person and will educate him that okay, you can take a leaf or two from it, but don't take it. So the social, it's a social issue, as I said again and again, and socially together we can control it. The second thing that you mentioned about the gene bank, yes, we are in the gene bank, we are collecting plants from all over the world, and not all over, they're from all over the country, and are preserving them. And like I think there was a problem with potato somewhere in Peru, or I don't remember exactly. And if you remember, the resistant gene was obtained from the land races which they had in the gene bank. So these are the kind of things that we expect, that we must have the gene bank facility. And the gene bank started quite earlier in National Agriculture Research Council Islamabad. And we have some of those wheat varieties which were tall, which were not very productive, but they were very resistant to diseases and insects. So those varieties and those kind of land races have been in that particular gene bank. And yes, we do have access to it, but we have to go through a long process to get those, and because each year they have a big land with them, and the government was trying to snatch it, but the public at large and the agriculturists in particular from all over the country requested the Prime Minister, don't transform this land into a the housing and things like that. So that's a big chunk of land. It's in hundreds of acres. I don't exactly remember how much, but it is more than 200 hectares at least. And that land, in that particular land, they cultivate it again and refresh the material according to the international standards and keep it again. So after a while, they for let us say for keeping in frozen conditions for 20 years, they will that will be written on it, and then after 20 years they'll probably get it out, the small envelope, and will cultivate it and will preserve it back for the next generation. So the present director is it so happens that we work together. He was with me in Weed Science Society, and Dr. Sadruddin Siddiqui, and he's always asking me, please, if you can contribute some of the land dresses from different parts of the country. Yes, I'm a very frequent traveler. So he's always asking, and I'm also contributing, and not only me, but people from all over the country are contributing to it. So I don't know whether I answered it correctly or not.
You did. Any more questions or comments? Well, can I have one more comment or a question, Dr.
Please,
Khan?
please, I'm ready.
These alien invasive species you were talking about, like mesquite,
Yes.
and milk thistle plant, are they intentionally introduced for a certain purpose or accidentally introduced?
Yeah, I mentioned about the invasive plants that I mentioned. Let me give you the example of the Browsonetia. As I said, the Browsonetia was intentionally introduced. The again, the mesquite, the Prosopis was intentionally introduced. But there are plants like, as I said, it's Parthenium, which it's a conspiracy theory, but we never know how it got into Pakistan from Australia.
Yeah, I see.
And all of a sudden, it's not only in Pakistan, now it is in Sri Lanka, it's in India, it's in Pakistan, and in Afghanistan as well. I saw it in Afghanistan as well. So it's all over, covering all over this area. So how it got it, we never know. So there are, invasive species which are introduced mostly. But with the change in environment, some of our own species became invasive, okay? Because with the change of the ecosystem changed, and probably mutations occurred within the plant, and they became invasive. They were not that invasive before, but they became invasive with the passage of time. So these are the kind of things that you cannot say always that invasive was a alien. Some of the local ones also became invasives.
Yeah, I see. Well, the same problem happened in the States with the mesquite, because it was localized in certain areas and became invasive. But it has high percentage of protein. That's why it might be used in restoration.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, any more comments or questions? Okay, then.
Yes.
Dr. Zabta? Oh, yeah. By the end of this fascinating talk, I'm going to let you know that our next meeting will be with Dr. Zabta Shinwari. He will talk in this series of the webinars. We hope that we will see you again next month sometime. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And it's a pleasure seeing you all. Thank you very much. So kind of.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Doctor.
Bye,
Assalamu
bye,
alaikum.
Lemma.